I'm taking the team total. I'm taking first quarter, first half, full game, taking it all. OU all the way. I lost so much money on OU.
Whoa, he has trouble with the spin, and the ball is free. Can't start all crazy.
And they run through our ass like shit through a tin horn, man.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
What is up, and welcome to a very special, not another CFB pod. This is a recap show for Week 6 college football, Week 5 NFL. I've got a sign above my head. It says, "Be nice to us." My Sooners lost 49-0 to their main rival in the Cotton Bowl. Okay, then the Spartans lose for Beast. His Lions are shut out on Sunday. Okay, maybe our picks did okay, but our teams let us down. But Beast, how we doing, man?
We're doing okay. I would say the description of how my two teams between Michigan State and the Lions are doing is how my connection is going to be on this podcast. I was telling PG before the show, I'm up at a cabin in like northern Michigan. Internet connection's not the best, but the boys grind it out. We do what we got to do, and we make the podcast happen because we're just dedicated to the grind, baby.
We're dedicated to the grind. Again, shout out to the Coda Sports Gambling Network for making all this happen. But yeah, our guy Beast is out and about in the wilderness, and he's grinding out. So far, dude, knock on wood, but it's been fine. So we'll get right into the breakdown. But before we do that, I want to get a quick ad read in. The BetCoda Sportsbook is a South Dakota owned and operated sportsbook located in the Midnight Star Casino in Deadwood, South Dakota, serving customers in the state. As you enter the Midnight Star, you are swept into the past of the grand staircase, stunning woodwork, and the elegance of the chandelier. They offer the best lines in Deadwood, so stop by and mention the Coda Sports Gambling Network to receive a free BetCoda t-shirt. Play responsibly. Must be 21 years or older to wager. Gambling problems or concerns? Call 1-800-522-4700. Shout out to Pace and all the Coda Cappers, man. Really a solid little network we got going on. Beast, let's get right into college football, man. As much as I don't want to, just because of my Sooners, we got to talk some college football because it was a big weekend.
Oh, it was a huge weekend. I thought there was a lot of really big upsets. Not necessarily, I guess, upsets. There were a couple upsets, but a couple games that wasn't necessarily expecting to be close. Just like off top of our head, like for example, like the Alabama Texas A&M. Like we talked a lot of shit. We talked a lot of shit about Texas A&M and how we didn't think they'd be able to hang, and that was a game that I was very interested in. Dialed in. And is Bama our consensus number one after this week? I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no. See, I did move him down. I moved him down all the way to 3. Actually, I put Georgia and Ohio State above them. I know Georgia's had a few shaky weeks, but they looked much better this week. And, that's going to get better. That team is so young at its core. If you really look at their roster, I think Bama's got to be number 3 right now. They're still undefeated. They're still doing their thing. Obviously, Texas A&M is better than their record would indicate. I mean, their talent, their roster is insane. The talent on their roster is just crazy. Jimbo Fisher, he's not the best coach ever, but they've got talent there, and they played really close. And one thing I want to get out there is Jimbo did the same thing last year. They brought a bunch of things into this matchup with Alabama that Alabama had not seen yet this year, and it worked for them. They keep it close with A&M does. 24-20 Bama wins at home. But, I mean, I was all over Bama minus 24 or whatever on the podcast. I'm looking pretty dumb on that one. But, yeah, the Aggies played well, but this was not Alabama's best game. It should be noted that their starting quarterback was not in the game, and that is a big thing. Maybe we're overreacting, but that's kind of what we do, We're college football fans.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a big difference between Bryce Young and Milroe. I mean, we want to believe that, Milroe could be the next big thing, but he's not Bryce Young. And
that's a big difference. Talent just yet.
So when we say like we thought Alabama was the consensus number 1, that was with Bryce Young. So big difference for sure. That's true.
Maybe we are overreacting. Maybe you talked me down a little bit, but let's get into some of these other games because we did have some good ones. Let's do this. Let's start by each one of us. We'll talk about our respective teams' games. So Ohio State, the team that I have at number 2 this week, goes to East Lansing and beats Michigan State 49-20. I didn't catch a lot of this game, just kind of in and out. I think it was the same exact time as the OU game. And but I do want to hear from you. Like, what you think? It doesn't just have to be about the Spartans, because obviously we're pretty big on the Buckeyes here on the pod. So you can talk more about them if you really want to approach it from that angle.
Yeah, I mean, it's never good when you're going to give up over 600 yards offense. And, we kind of knew Michigan State would have some issues on defense. So I wasn't really happy, obviously, defensively, but they weren't really getting anything going at any point. On the ground, I want to say rushing yards, they had 7 yards total on the day. That can't
Wow.
happen. So, people can say like Peyton Thorne, he didn't play that all that great. But when you have no rushing game going at all, you don't even have like any availability to open up the passing game at that point. So just an all
Right.
around kind of tough effort. We knew it was a potential that they'd get blown out. I don't really know what to think entering this week against Wisconsin, but vibes are low for the Michigan State Spartans. I'll be honest.
Well, listen here. I'm gonna make you feel better because we need to talk about the Red River Shootout. Texas Longhorns 49, Oklahoma Sooners 0. This was the first time OU hasn't scored a point since 1998. This is tied for the worst margin of victory ever in this game. OU once beat Texas like 63-13 or something, 62-13, something like that. So anyway, this is tied for the worst win ever in the series by scoring margin. OU was just, I mean, there was never any hope. They trot out they trot out Bevel. I don't even want to say his name anymore. They trot out Bevel, and he goes for 38 passing yards. Your starting quarterback, you talked about the rushing only being 7. For OU, they only had 38 passing yards. So that obviously can't happen either. I mean, OU was just outmatched. And you kind of hear me laughing a little bit because it was such a bad loss that it was funny. Like the
Yeah.
video I put out on Twitter, I was like laughing at how bad the effort was. I mean, what can I really say? OU got dominated. Texas, if they had Quinn Ewers all year, I think they're undefeated. I guess we can go there with this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. At that point, like you said, can't have that low of passing yards. And when you talk about it getting funny, that just kind of gives me like the feeling of like I know how that feels being a Lions fan so many years. Like
Yeah.
after you have a couple tough losses, same way with the Lions right now. But like after you have a couple tough losses, like after the Kansas State loss and after the TCU loss, you start to kind of get this awareness of like maybe my team's not so good. So a loss to Texas hurt a lot less. Like if OU is undefeated entering this game, I think that win or that loss hurts a lot more than if they
Yeah.
hadn't just dropped the last two and dropped the one against TCU where we kind of knew entering this game we're like, okay, they just kind of got smoked by TCU. Maybe OU is not that good. So you didn't have like high expectations
Right.
entering the
Right.
game, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I was talking to some people today about this, but it's just when the loss is that bad to the point where it's literally historic. It was a historic loss for OU. That hurts kind of in a different way because it's coming in the future. 49-0, 49-0.
Right.
Texas fans are going to be hammering that for years. I already have a bunch of Texas fans tweeting me. I just looked. I guess they remembered that people were tweeting before the game about OU. And some guy had Quinn Ewers with the freaking Thanos glove with all the Infinity Stones in it. In my mentions, it's brutal.
Oh, boy.
We both deserve better. That was what my sign was originally going to say: is we deserve better. But instead, I'll just say, be nice to us. There's
Yeah,
a couple guys who need some love.
we deserve better. We're a couple football guys. We're dedicated to the grind, and we're just not getting the same feedback from our teams.
They're not matching our energy, which is just not cool.
Oh.
Let's talk about something that maybe will make you a little happier, Beast. Michigan struggles with Indiana. They do end up winning the game 31-10, but I believe at halftime it was 10-10. I
Yeah.
mean, what'd you see about Michigan? Because I know you before were kind of feeling like maybe there's a little fraudulency to it. Did this like confirm or deny that theory?
Yeah, I mean, I know they picked up the foot on the paddle as far as like second half. Obviously, they looked a lot better in the second half. You outscore a team 21-0 in the second half. You're going to be happy with that. But these are the types of games that like Michigan's had recently where they're, I shouldn't say necessarily bad, but like they're playing down two teams. Like they didn't necessarily look super sharp against Maryland, and then obviously against Indiana through one half of football. Like they let Indiana hang around, and at no point should I say that I felt like Indiana was going to win that game. But it's just like if you're going to be this team that we're talking about as a top 4 team in the
Mm-hmm.
country and like
Eh,
CFP
yep.
potential, you can't play down to a team like Indiana. Like Indiana stinks. Like I'll be the first
Yeah.
one to say it.
Yeah. They're
So
bad.
you can't allow them to hang around, and against a team like Penn State, which they have coming up, I believe they're on the road for that game. I'm very interested because if they come out like they just did against Indiana against Penn State, this is not such a close game. It's not 10-10 at halftime. I mean, you might be in some dangerous waters coming up. So we'll see if
Yeah.
Michigan can kind of get things together. But at times they've looked like maybe they're not the team that we've boasted them up to be, I should say.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of there with you. I had them ranked above Clemson this week. Clemson beat Boston College 31-3. They kind of added some points on late in that one to kind of make it look a little bit better. And so did Michigan. It should be added. Michigan scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. One of those drives coming with like 3 minutes left.
Right.
So anyway, yeah. But I agree with your takes on Michigan. I just want to get that out there. Let's talk about a couple of ranked matchups. A winner I had from this weekend: Tennessee -3. Tennessee won over LSU in Death Valley 40-13. They match up with Bama this week, dude. I'm giving this line out early. I'm on Tennessee -7.5 or +7.5 rather. Tennessee catching 7.5 points at home. I think this team's good, man. They're just scoring points, and we have too many question marks right now about Alabama. But we should talk about this Tennessee performance because it was a huge win for them.
Oh, 100%. We've been pretty high on Tennessee all year. We
Yep.
say, we're a Tennessee Hendon Hooker podcast.
Mhm.
But Tennessee, once again, they rolled into Death Valley and they did what they do, and that's Tennessee puts up points on you. So in a situation where we don't really know what's going on with Bryce Young, like is Bryce Young going to be back for this upcoming game?
Right.
If Bryce Young's not starting, suddenly
Dude.
Tennessee really can you keep up and put up with this Tennessee offense with
Mhm.
Milroe at quarterback? I'm not so sure they can. I would
Mhm.
imagine that with the line being what it is, there's an assumption that maybe Bryce Young's back if they're going to be,
Yeah.
full 6.5, 7-point favorites.
Yeah.
But at the same time, man, you have to be excited about what you're seeing out of Tennessee. There's some real upset potential. I'm excited for that game. Going to be one of the best games of the weekend, but some big time matchups coming up all weekend, obviously. But that's going to be
Oh,
prime time. You know what I mean?
No, this is an electric one, but yes, no. Okay, so that Tennessee, I'm actually kind of sad about it. That Tennessee Bama game's at 2:30. Now that is where College Game Day is going, but it's that
Okay.
classic SEC spot that it's on CBS, and it's going to take 7 hours in the middle of your day. But yeah, no, this Saturday coming up, I just want to get this tweet out there because I sent you this tweet from our guy Bear with he's with the College Game Day show. He said Saturday is the second time in CFB history where there are 3 matchups of teams 5-0 or better in the same day. 5-0 Penn State at 6-0 Michigan, 6-0 Alabama at 5-0 Tennessee, Oklahoma State 5-0, TCU 5-0. So it's gonna be an all-time weekend. So the show that will drop Friday morning, you guys aren't gonna want to miss it because we may or may not have a special guest on for that one. But more importantly, it's just going to be an insane weekend to preview. Let's get into a couple more of these games, get down the list. We didn't have a ton of ranked games this weekend, but another one that we had, and we are kind of a Pac-12 podcast, and we were a Utah podcast, but now that's kind of changing because Utah gets beat at UCLA 42-13. Our guy DTR, man, this has got to now be a DTR podcast. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA.
Oh, yeah. The CFB Central podcast, I kind of went against their whole belief because they said, we're a UCLA podcast for them.
Yeah.
And I said, well, but I love Utah so much.
We had been a Utah pod before this.
So I was fired up about Utah, but hey, UCLA, they're showing everything I need to see out of them. When you can take a Utah defense that I talked so much and you put 42 up on the board, I mean, that's the Pac-12 champion type stuff. So
yeah.
I'm not going to go as far as to say it's locked up, but they look awesome. I was so wrong about how good I thought Utah was and maybe how much I may have been disrespecting UCLA. So they shoved it down, my face here, and I like it. We love DTR, man. This is going to be a fun team to watch the next couple of weeks.
Yes, their schedule is pretty tough, and I was just thinking, how great is that USC versus UCLA game going to be? Because USC won this weekend. They beat a pretty decent Washington State team 30-14 in LA. both those teams they're on a crash course right now. Both teams undefeated. So the battle for LA, I mean, I know there's only going to be like a half full stadium, but it'll still be an electric game to watch. Our Kansas Jayhawks, though, man, they took their first loss of the season, 38-31. TCU, man, they're good. We talked about Max Duggan, and that's kind of a take that's been paying off. I mean, they went in there and time and time again, TCU would score because I tailed you on that TCU -7 bet. TCU would score, Kansas would immediately answer. Like they just kept having the punch and until the very end, basically. And thank goodness TCU at least pushed that bet for us at -7.
Yeah. Yeah, I ended up getting in early. I had like -6.5, so I ended up barely covering in that one. So yeah, so I got a little bit lucky with that, but the same take we kind of said, when we said Max Duggan, and I was talking about how TCU in every single game they had scored 38 points or more, and they kept that pace up. They had 38 exact. So they've just been putting up points on every single team. So whether you guys want to believe it was OU or whether it was Kansas or Colorado or whoever they've played this year, it's nothing like it's not just a one matchup thing. They have an offense and they're rolling right now. So Big 12 contender easily.
Yeah, and we had another Big 12 game, Kansas State at Iowa State. Kansas State wins 10-9. I think the line was -2. You were on Iowa State +2, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
I had Iowa State money line as my money line dog, and that was one that hurt so bad because Iowa State, they just kept kicking field goals and not really. All we needed was like one of those field goal drives to be a touchdown, and we cover. And it was +110. I was like, I felt like as 2-point dogs at home that they had the advantage, and I still probably kind of gonna hold strong on that take because I felt like they were the better team. They just didn't pull it off, but it happens. That's part of college football. Good for Kansas State getting a win on the road. That's a tough W, man.
That's a really tough W. Yeah. I was just kind of pulling up the stats and everything, but man, it just seems like Iowa State's in one of these every weekend. It would be brutal to be an Iowa State fan. We need to get in that Notre Dame does upset BYU in that Shamrock series or whatever they call it, 28-20. I was on the over 50, and you see it landed at 48. So that was fun. Basically, both teams are looking to run the clock in the second half. It was. That's how kind of my weekend went betting wise, was like 1 or 2 points here or there, and my whole weekend looks crazy different. But yeah, if you're ready, Beast, let's hop into the NFL because we had quite a decent NFL slate as well. I had a good time. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys won, but I know maybe we should start with the Lions because the Lions do lose in New England and get shut out 29-0. So I'll let you lead off if you're a little bit sad, and then I'll come in with the Cowboys talk, and I'll bounce us back.
Oh, it was embarrassing, and that was one of those games where I was on the road for the game, and I was almost glad that I wasn't watching it. Yes. I was just listening on the radio because when your team from start to finish is just getting absolutely just dog walked, as I'll say often on the podcast, they got dog walked. I mean, 29-0 by Bailey Zappi. By Bill Belichick in this defense. I said I thought Lions over 20.5 points team total was such a lock, and they didn't put up a single point. So like that might be as we look at like the end of season records later this year, that might be my worst play of the year.
That one's up there, but you got to remember that I gave out OU money line on this podcast. We lost by 49.
So I mean, boys had a couple rough looks. I'm not going to lie, but I'm so frustrated. There's Detroit fans saying, oh, we want Dan Campbell out.
I saw that.
We're so locked in with him right now. I want to say his deal was a 6-year deal. So there's not much you can do. I hope that there's kind of an upgrade going forward with a couple of these weeks, but
yeah,
not fun vibes to be in Detroit right now.
Yeah, I know. You guys just got to finish strong. There's a lot of season left. That's the thing people kind of forget. It's easy to do with sports. There's a lot of season left. And I say that to kind of caution myself because the Cowboys won this weekend 22-20 in LA over the defending Super Bowl champion Rams with a backup quarterback. Cooper Rush wins again, but here are his numbers. This is just to get the Dak people out of the way, the Rush greater than Dak stuff. Cooper Rush's stats, he was 10 of 16 for 102 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Like he stayed out of the way. He did a good backup job, but stop. Unless it's a meme, just stop. But I was impressed with what the Cowboys did. They ran the ball really well against this really stout Rams defensive line, front seven, really. But everybody stepped up where they had to. This is mostly a defensive game for the Cowboys. Obviously, they had a blocked punt. They had a strip sack return for a touchdown, and I have their defense in fantasy, so I was pretty happy with that. They had a really good weekend for me in fantasy. But yeah, happy about the Cowboys. They're 4-1 right now, but there's a lot of season left. A lot of season left.
Yeah, a lot of season left. But as you mentioned, the biggest thing I think I took away from that game is just this duo of Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott. Like that duo is nasty. Like they are so good. I'm not so sure that you can find another like 1-2 punch in the NFL right now that might be topping them. Because the fact that, Tony Pollard technically would be like your 1B, and he outrushed Zeke Elliott. I mean, 8 carries, 86 yards. And then Zeke, his 22 carries, he still put up 78 yards. I mean, these guys are just running the ball down people's throats right now. I'm curious to hear, like, what the take is going to be, because everybody like wants to believe Tony Pollard should take Zeke's spot. I'm not so sure. Like, it's working. So, like, why change things up? Maybe Tony Pollard's like a better in that change of pace role.
Yes, that's his role. And I think even when Meerkat was on here, I think his big pick this year was at Ezekiel Elliott's rushing yards over. And he's had a great year this year. He looks rejuvenized, but at the same time, like, he's running between the tackles. A lot of Tony Pollard stuff are like jet sweeps or like, kind of these tricky little counter plays, where Ezekiel Elliott, he's running on 4th and 1 a lot of times where they know he's running the ball. It's just a different style. And I think I wanted to trade Zeke earlier this year, but I love what Zeke's doing right now. He's running the ball hard as hell, and you have to respect that. So he's playing really hard. Let's talk about some of these other games. The main one I want to get in first off is our London game. I heard that this was the first time they had 2 teams in London play that had winning records. Somehow the Giants win 27-22. Kind of a weird game. Did you see any of it?
Yeah, I was able to kind of keep up as far as like Action Network went. I was not able to watch that game, but I kind of saw some of the highlights, obviously, from the game after. The other highlight I saw that might be like the highlight of my weekend, just because, I'm in the NFC North as a Detroit fan, was the London fans prior to the game, doing the chant of, take that cheese and shove it up your ass or whatever. I was like, what an elite chant from the London fans. Take the cheese and shove it up your ass. You got to love it, man.
Yeah, that was a big part of the game. You're right. That deserves its own little part.
Hey, entering the game, maybe the Giants had a little bit of backing going in once that chant happened. So, but Saquon looked great. I think you have to say that maybe Saquon's got that, comeback player of the year kind of thing going on here.
Yeah. It's his to lose, I think, for sure, without a doubt. And yeah, so he puts up what? Just over 100 yards and a touchdown, but like the average per
I think
touch
his late
was
touchdown
insane.
was the one that sealed it. If I'm correct.
But his yards per touch was incredible. You averaged 12 yards a touch receiving and 5.5 roughly rushing. So like every time he touched the ball, it was just a big play. And his whole thing with me, as a quote unquote Saquon Barkley hater, is he's really good. It's just, can he stay healthy?
Right.
And as we said, the theme right now is kind of, there's a lot of season left. So we'll see what he's got. We need to get in some other games, but that was a big win for the Giants. And all of a sudden the NFC Beast is looking unreal. The only team in the NFC East that's not looking good is the Commanders. I believe they lost to the Titans 21-17. But let's talk about some of the big games. The Bills are back. Bills beat the Steelers 38-3. Not really much to say other than I wish I would have been on the Bills. Although I think the spread minus 14 or something on that. Something crazy.
Yeah, it was minus 14, minus 14.5, and they blew it out.
It was never close.
And typically, I'm like, we always say, like, I'm like, oh, a double digit, I'll take,
We're the too many points guys.
I had to stay away from the Steelers this past week, and I'm glad I did, because Bills, that was never even close,
Bills look good, man. I hope a lot of season left. Hope they can keep going. Okay, so Browns lose again, 30-28 to the Chargers. I mean, I didn't watch much of it, but I just think it's crazy that the Browns keep finding these ways to lose games. I know Brissett had an interception late that kind of cost them. I don't know what to make of the Browns. I thought they would be a lot better, but that defense is really, and it may just be one of those things where the defense has been on the field too much. I don't know. Let's talk about Bears Vikings a little bit because I had the under in this one and the Vikings win 29-22, blew the under out of the water. Good win for the Vikings though. 4-1 for them too. They're coming at that NFC North right now.
Oh yeah, the Vikings. That was one of those games where I was dialed in. I had the Vikings in like my NFL survivor pool, so I was like holding on tight. And that was a game that it took the Vikings everything in their power to win that game. It was a late touchdown that they had. The Bears had them on the ropes. In every aspect, I was like, I think the Bears might win this game. I was very, very nervous. I was rooting for the Vikings, obviously, which was tough. But they did their job, and you know what? I got to give Kirk Cousins and I got to give Delvin Cook credit because, hey, they marched the ball downfield at the end of the game, and they made that win happen. That's what you should do if you're a team that, like everybody said, Vikings potentially could win the NFC North. That's the type of stuff you have to do. You can't drop a game to the Bears, and they didn't. So give them all the credit in the world.
Yeah, definitely big time. Okay, so the Saints get a good win against the Seahawks there at home. Taysom Hill breakout game, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 112 yards rushing. The guy was everywhere. Somebody said that Sean Payton was calling plays in disguise because all of a sudden Taysom Hill was very involved and he killed it, man. But Geno looked good this game too. Like this was a game 32-39 is your final score. That's an insanely high total for the NFL. And without overtime.
Oh, 100%. Like as far as point totals go for the week, just electric offense on both sides. And that was a big win for New Orleans. We kind of said how we like New Orleans entering the season. This was the type of game that I'm not saying this was a pretty win because you should probably, blow out a team like Seattle, who I think kind of stinks. But
yeah,
hey, you know what? High scoring game. They stuck in it and you win a shootout. That's what you should do at home,
Yeah. We had a couple weird games too. Like the Jets beat the Dolphins 40-17. I know I tailed you, I think, on Dolphins -3, but I mean, the team was just so beat up. I know that's final score is ugly, but the Jets scored 21 in the fourth quarter, and it was on the Dolphins' third string quarterback. I think Tua will be back this week. It was just a mess, but we don't even need to get into that one too much. A good win for the Jets, though. They're 3-2 right now, looking decent. A good winner I had Falcons +10. They lose at the Buccaneers 21-15 in Tampa, but that was a good winner that you gave out. I like that one.
Yeah, I felt like Atlanta.
I was just going to say the Falcons showed a lot of fight to come back in that one because it was not close to start. 13-0 at the half, 21-0 going into the fourth, but we score 15 in the fourth quarter to get us that cover, baby. That's the kind of handicapping we need.
Oh, Atlanta fights, man. Like that's the one thing we knew about them all year. Atlanta will fight, and they're going to give you everything they got. The fact that like they scored that touchdown late and they went for 2. I was like, okay, they don't even want to tie at 21 if they get, a touchdown.
Yeah.
They're just trying to win this game. Like Atlanta, they're just all over the place, but I like that about them. And they fight, and Mariota showed some strength and some fight late in that game. And that we kind of knew, like out of all these really bad teams in the NFL, they're like double digit, underdogs. Out of all of them, I think I might like the Atlanta Falcons the most just because Mariota, for whatever reason, he gets the guys going late and he keeps them in games. Every single one of the Falcons' losses this year, for as bad as they've been, I feel like they've been in every single game.
Yeah.
So you got to like it, man.
Yeah, they just got to keep fighting because they're 2-3, not terrible. There's a lot of season left that could go either way for them. A team that finally did get their first win, our Texans. Well, I shouldn't say our Texans because they upset our pesky Jags 13-6. I don't know. Dude, the AFC South, man, that division is so wonky to me.
Yeah, I did not watch a lick of that game, but
no,
I can tell
me neither. There's no reason to not to be offensive to Houston or Jacksonville fans, but
but I know for a fact that I don't think there would have been much to watch in a 13-6 game. There was not a ton of scoring. And it felt like one of those ugly games that you'd usually attribute to like bad weather, but I don't think there was bad weather at all. I think it was normal.
Sunny in Florida, man. Sunny and bright and warm, and just like neither team could do a dang thing. And Lawrence had a really rough day after we kind of thought he was finally getting it going. Maybe we jumped off the train in time because I think we had Jaguars the week before, didn't we? And we went, oh no, they just barely didn't cover.
Right.
That's right. So the 49ers beat the Panthers 37-15. The main thing I want to talk about from this game is Matt Rule got fired today as of recording this. So he's out. Baker's down another coach, but Baker's not. I mean, I don't even want to get into Baker talk because he's not very good, obviously, but a good win for the 49ers. I mean, 37-15. I mean, that's in the NFL, that's a stinking blowout.
Yeah, I felt like I kept waiting for the 49ers to kind of be dominant for a lot of the season. They've kind of had some ugly games. Obviously, losing to the Bears in week 1 was pretty ugly.
That's ugly.
But when you win 37-15, specifically like defensively, you only allowed 15. We said that we thought this
traveling all the way across the country. I mean, we've been on the 49ers early on, mostly you. But yeah, they travel all the way across the country and get this cover.
And we said this 49ers defense was going to be their strength, and they showed it. So that's what you need to do is just dominate teams right down into the ground defensively, and they did that. So I liked it.
49ers, man, they're going to be trouble, especially with the Rams not looking like they're there yet. The Cardinals lose at home to the Eagles 20-17. It was a pretty good game. We'll talk about that in just a second. I just wanted to say I think the 49ers got a pretty real shot at that division all of a sudden. It's looking interesting at least because the Seahawks, they're pesky, but they're not there yet. So right now, 49ers playing some good ball. Let's talk about Eagles because they are undefeated, 5-0. Get a good win there in Arizona. But look, the Cardinals missed a game-tying field goal. I would have loved to see that thing go to OT, but now the Eagles are teed up with a matchup with the Dallas Cowboys. I believe it's the Sunday night game. I'm very much looking forward to that one, man. It's the Sunday night game. I'm going to be in demon mode for that. I can already tell you on Potato Gobbler Twitter. It's going to be rough. I can't wait.
I love it. No, you're right though. The Cardinals played good that game. They actually, had more yards than the Eagles. Not by much, but it just shows you that game was just as close as the finish ended up being. And there's an argument to be made that, the Cardinals should have won that game, at home and stuff, but give credit to the Eagles. They fought hard and they did what they had to do. Yep. So that's going to be a fun finish in that, division as far as between the Eagles and the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys actually might be able to give them a fight. So I'm excited too.
I'm thinking Dak will be back, and obviously we'll give a bigger breakdown on our Friday show because we'll have a little more information. But just the way Cooper Rush and Dak were talking at the end of this last game, it was kind of like a, hey man, great job. You saved our season, kind of a now it's my turn kind of a speech, I feel like, from Dak, but we'll see. But I know he was close before, so this is another week. It's Sunday night against the Eagles. I don't see how he can say no to that. Let's talk about one last game before we wrap up the recap show. Bengals, Ravens, Sunday Night Football. The Ravens get a game winner from Justin Tucker, the kicker, 19-17. Big-time divisional matchup. It was a fun game. I think it was lower scoring than maybe we would thought it was going to be because I think we both called for a kind of a shootout, but it wasn't that. But still a very good game.
Yeah, it hurt because we were both on Baltimore Ravens -3.
We were on
minus 3.5.
Yeah.
Whatever people ended up grabbing it on. We all lost, and it felt like the right play though. And that's one of those plays that I put out there, and somebody tweeted at me on Twitter. Forget the guy, so no, sorry to that guy. But he was like, "How confident do you feel in this play?" And I said, well, the bet percentage right now is 52% of bets, but 75% of the money.
Yep.
And I said, that's a bet that no matter what, I'm going to feel confident on. I felt like that was the right play. It lost, but I felt like just percentage wise, I will take that on a primetime Sunday Night Football game all day, 10 times out of 10. So I didn't feel bad about the play. It didn't go our way.
Lamar didn't play his absolute best game. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, it could have went our way. If McPherson misses the extra point and then we end up kicking the field goal for a push, it could have went either way. But from my takeaway from this game, I think these teams are both still threats. Obviously, with the Steelers taking a pretty big step back, the Browns have really dug themselves in a hole. This is kind of what I think it's going to come down to between the Bengals and the Ravens to win that division. But we'll see. We'll see. My guy Pompano Eddie had me on Ravens to win the division before the season started. We're in decent spot here, but a lot of same theme we've had all episode long. A lot of football left, but a good weekend of football there. I'm glad we had it. It was fun. This next weekend, I think, is going to be even better. So I'm looking forward to it. Week 7, college football, and week 6 of NFL. So again, our show will come out on that Friday morning, and we'll be hammering picks. We might get a guest on. Not sure yet. We haven't talked about that. But either way, man, I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I'm going to be locked in. We got a big weekend of football coming up. Obviously, like PG said, last weekend was a great weekend. But I think we're finally heating up into the season where they've already mattered, but they're going to just keep mattering more. We're getting better matchups. Teams are finally starting to kind of hit their stride. So I'm excited. The only thing I can say to end out the show really is we need 3 more yards out of our guy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, to hit this over on receiving yards on Monday Night Football. So anybody that's listening to the pod, hopefully you're listening thinking Beast got a W last night. Prayers up, baby.
We need some winners. I'm on the teaser of I think I have Raiders plus 13 and the over 45.5. Decent start there.
Looking
Game's
good.
getting close, but a lot of game left. Thank you guys so much for listening. Like we said, be ready for that Friday show. Like us up, rate us 5 stars, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys Friday morning. Peace.
Peace out.